Guys, the struggle is real. Have you ever felt like that about your obstacles? Like no one else has ever been through what you've been through? I know I have, and I'm sure some of you guys have as well. If that is you, keep watching. Got some amazing, amazing stories of several CEOs, presidents of companies that have been through that and have felt very similar, and some of the lessons that they've learned along the way. Guys, this is episode 37, so I wanted to do something special. Just kidding. That's not why I'm doing this. But I just wanted to do an episode like this, and I thought that this was a good time. And it just so happened, episode 37. But that's crazy, right? I can't believe that we've gotten this far. It's been something like 8 months or something along those lines. I can't remember. But I've got some really, really great clips for you today from several of the interviews that I've done over the past 8 months. So I've got clips from an interview with Doug Campbell, one with Michael Benton, Jason Thacker, Nora Johnson, David Skolnick, and Tiffany Houston. Those are some of our more recent ones. They really, really have some amazing stories that they've been through. So without further ado, we'll get into it. Have you ever felt like you just keep having failure after failure? What do? Doug, president of Calling Media, super, super awesome guy, has something to say about it.
No, I had, when I was 10, I decided I wanted to be a Supreme Court justice. If they were only going to let 9 people make the real difficult decisions, I wanted to be one of them. And it turns out I wasn't going to be. That wasn't going to be a thing. But then the next logical step was I was going to go be a lawyer. So I was always going to be a lawyer. I got an academic scholarship to go to college. I got a philosophy degree so I could learn how to argue and debate and logic and all that. So then I could go to law school and realize I didn't actually want to be an actual lawyer, having met some lawyers.
You felt like keeping your soul? No, just kidding. I got a lot of lawyer friends.
It just turned out that it was either you sold your soul, or you were incredibly bored, or you were incredibly broke, or you found some mixture between, and you work in 60 hours to make partners so you could work 80 hours.
No,
it just wasn't for me.
Yeah.
And I know several people that are lawyers that love it, and good for them.
Yeah.
Right? But it wasn't for me. And so I went out, I'm going to go work for a startup company. I'm going to do all these little things and discover all this stuff, and they paid me in options. So I didn't make any money. I'm living on options.
This is going to go great.
Yeah, right. So I'm learning how to write code and do websites and databases, and I'm doing that part-time spare time on the side just to make ends meet. Because this woman agreed to marry me, and then right out of college, before we got married, we're just engaged, and she's like, "This is what it's like? You're living at your parents' house working for options for a company that doesn't exist?" So the company fails to launch, and I fall back on my network, which I was enough of a talker that in high school I realized I could play the role of the guy on the phone. And so I could do call center sales. So I went and I did call center sales. And we've got a condo, and we're happily married, we're taking vacations, and we have a kid. And then 2 things happen. One, she gets pregnant. We're going to have our first kid.
Awesome.
And they give me a 5-year plaque. This is it. This is what I went from Supreme Court justice to the guy at the cable company who asks you if you want ESPN or Disney, right? And I was just dying inside. I really was. And so I went out there, and I had a friend who, one of them went and started an agency, a little agency you may have heard of called Calling Media. And we had a mutual acquaintance who was doing sort of like some of the digital stuff. Because Calling Media started, it was mostly digital, electronic media, cable, television, that kind of stuff, radio. And so the digital stuff was sort of done through a different arm. So I went, and I'd known this other guy longer, and everything I knew was digital. So I went with him. So I ran off with this other guy, and we had some clients in common and everything, but we went off, and after 2 years, I just became steadily more depressed. And I thought at the time it was because I was spending too much time running the business, dealing with clients, all those sorts of things, and it was what I really needed to do was really dive into my passion. I needed to just be a pure coder. That's what I needed. That's what I loved. That's what had kept me going all these years. And I really saw myself as this dichotomy of like, there's this Doug that I don't like, who's gregarious and salesy and talks to people all the time. And then there's this Doug who's just a nerd and just wants to be alone with the logic. So it was such a hard moment to look at a guy that I'd known for, at that time, 20, 25 years, where he and I tried to build this business together and just say, I got to go. I got to go. So here I was. I woke up in a call center. Now I'm going to be a dad. I'm stuck in this dead-end career. What am I?
But they give you a plaque.
But they give me. Yeah, I got a plaque. I got a pension. It's sets, right? All I need is a gold watch, and like a 45 more years of this.
Yeah.
And so I got depressed then, and then I left. And I'm like, I'm going to pursue my passion, and I went and I pursued my passion for 2 years, and it didn't work, and it fell apart. And I went and I found another job where I was just a pure coder, where all I would do was be locked in a room for 8 hours working on code, and I got more depressed. It got worse. And I just felt like so defeated. I thought I had all this potential. I thought I had all these things going for me. I was working on these skills and all these things. And it turns out all I can do is, so I realized I'm dying there. And another friend of mine calls me up. And he and I worked on projects on the side. And he says, hey, I just found out that we just lost this client to this other company. And I looked at the company. They do this, they do this, they do this. And I was like, are you just calling to make it worse? Like, you can just tell me we lost him. You don't have to. And he's like, no, I'm calling because I'm in their training class. They're hiring. You should come by. So I ended up going back into another call center. And I'm like, this is it for me.
In the call center, out of the call center.
Yeah.
Back in the call center.
I finally mustered the courage to pursue my passion and leave it behind. And life goes, no, that's terrible. And I'm like, oh, it's because I didn't commit all the way. So I go deeper, and it got worse.
Interesting.
And the only thing that saved me was falling back into a call center. I was like, this can't work for me. This can't work for me. And I'll never forget it. I'm in the training class, and one of the other up-and-comers, he's like 22, and he's going to be the best sales guy on the planet. And he's like, which books do you read? Which sales guys do you follow up with? And one of the, I think he was the senior manager then, and he ended up becoming my director and a mentor and a friend. And he said, like, you got to read Brian Tracy, and you got to read a couple of the people. And in one of the books that he recommended, he talked about you have to love the product. You can't be out there trying to sell it to somebody. You've got to be you've got to know what you have, know that it's valuable for some people but not others. Mm-hmm. And your mission isn't to convince anybody, it's to find those people and help them come to that realization. Yeah. And in that moment, I saw sales differently. It was about helping people succeed. And this was the first way, that was the first bridge.
The unlock.
Yeah, it's the first brick in that bridge.
I love that.
Right? And so then I become a sales manager because I can help more of our customers succeed vicariously through a team of 15 people than I could on my own. And then as I started working with them and mentoring, I realized how much I enjoyed and got fulfillment by helping them succeed in their own lives, the skills they wanted to work on, the new career they wanted to leave for. Some of them were working their way through college because they were going to go be lawyers, right? And it was just amazing. And then I became a sales trainer. And my whole job became finding everybody around who needed help to succeed in their chosen path.
Love that.
And then I go out to lunch with a guy named Brian Calling. And we've been friends for like 20 years. We've been in a call center together. We had clients in common back when I first left the call center, a decade ago. And he explains to me the mission, helping people succeed.
Yeah.
And I was like, do you know it took me like 32 years of my life and like so many peaks and valleys to find that?
Oh, man.
And he's like, yeah, that's what we do here. And I'll be honest, I'm walking around with this half of a bridge. I said, are you kidding me? I've got that other half.
Yeah.
And I moved over, and it just, when you finally find it, it clicks, right?
Yeah.
And I just remember I was depressed that I wasn't going to be a lawyer, and I was depressed that I wasn't gonna that the startup never launched, and I was depressed that I spent 5 years doing nothing but selling phone and internet to people who thought they just wanted ESPN, and I was depressed that I tried to go start a small business pursuing my passion, and then it fell apart, and I was depressed that I couldn't make it as a coder, and I was depressed that, well, I guess I'm just falling back on the fact that I'm decent on the phones.
Yeah.
And one person said one thing about one book. I read it. And I know we just said you got to read all the books because there's not the one answer. But that's why you got to read all the books. Because I don't know what your answer is.
Yep.
I don't know what anybody's answer is, but you got to read all of them. Because in that one moment, that one thing shifted my perspective.
I love that.
And it's been great ever since. And it's going to fall apart. That's the thing I keep reminding myself. There's going to be a moment where it struggles again.
Yeah, where you're going to get punched in the face again.
Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely. Have you ever felt like you should be happy based off of everything that you have, but you're not? Check out Michael here. He's got an awesome story about it.
There's a couple major ones that in my life. But the one that really started my personal development journey and kind of developing myself. So I've been in mortgages at the time, mortgage lending for, I don't know, probably 4 years.
Yeah.
And I got mutually laid off, right? And so it was kind of a mutual like departing.
So it was a mutual dumping.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, he's like, we're
Right.
not gonna fire you, because you're really good, but like, you probably want to do other things, whatever. Anyway, and so I was like, fine. So
Wink, wink.
right,
Nudge,
exactly.
nudge.
So I was like, okay, thanks for the slow letdown. I remember going home, sitting on my stairs. No one was home. Kids were at school. Wife was at work at the time, and bawling. I am bawling, and I'm like, why? Like, why am I living like this? Why am I living paycheck to paycheck? I can even just think about it. Why am I living paycheck to paycheck? Why is my relationships with my spouse superficial? Why is my relationship with my kids so surface level? Like, I was just living. I wasn't. It was frustrating, and so, and in my mind, I'm like, I'm worth so much more. Like, I knew it. I didn't have any like accomplishments in my mind that gave me that confidence that, man, you're gonna do it, right? But I just had this innate feeling that I knew I was meant for more. I knew it, but I didn't know what it was. And so I'm sitting on my stairs and I'm like, dude, we have got to change. Like, something has got to change because I cannot live like this. And I say this on my podcast too, where it's like, when I'm telling that story to other people, if you look from a perspective outside of mine, Mike had everything. He had the house, he had the car, he had the kids, he had the wife, he had the money in he had all the stuff, right? But it wasn't enough. It wasn't what I wanted. I wanted more. And so when that happened, that's when everything turned around for me. And it was like, okay, what do I need to do? Because I couldn't start blaming external circumstances. They were out of my control. But what I knew was in my control was, if I'm seeing other people out there in the world doing these amazing things and they're having these vacations and they're smiling all the time and having peace, there's no reason on this God's green earth that I cannot have the same thing. So then from there, it was just finding out, okay, yeah, I am now have no job, and and my relationships aren't the greatest. Where do I go from here? And there was only one way to go, and it was up. I can't quit. First of all, I'm not a quitter. Second of all, I have people that depend on me. My wife depended on me at the time, right? My kids depend on me. My mom and my dad depend on me. There was no way in hell I was going to give up. So the only option I had was to figure it out. And I'm still figuring it out. But I'm a lot farther than where I was 7-8 years ago.
Have you ever felt like life is trying to lead you somewhere, but you're not sure where? Jason Thacker has, owner of Thacker Enterprises. He has something to say about it.
It's happened a lot, and so for me, I had that tool business, and I call it the voice. And so I'm sitting in my office, the truck's driving by, and a voice said, "Leave." And I was making so much money, and I was doing so well, but something inside me told me to leave. And at 10 o'clock in the morning, I just up and walked out the door.
Wow.
And it was my breakdown. And from that point, everything declined. We lost everything. We lost our house. We lost all of our money. We maxed out our credit cards. We filed bankruptcy. We ended up on public assistance. And, I had gotten another job, and I was working at this place doing debt settlement. And at the
Such
same
a fun
time,
job, I bet.
well, I'm giving people debt advice, right? And I'm like bankrupt. So it didn't really make a lot of sense, but that's where I was, right? So there was, we had started painting furniture on the side to make some extra money. Like, we would buy furniture at yard sales, and I'd sand it and paint it, and then we would sell it on Facebook or whatever.
Yeah.
So I was working at this place, and really stressed out. Like, we weren't making it financially, and I had to do a certain number of deals to get my commission, and I fell short. And I was on my car, and I'm breaking down, like, Lord, I'm like, please just help me find the words and make this work, Went back to work, and it got worse and worse and worse. And I said, okay, that's the answer. I'm not supposed to be doing this.
Interesting.
I'm supposed to be painting furniture, right? So I quit my job, and I go paint furniture. Didn't really work out, but it was enough for me to realize that's what I wanted to do. And so then I went and I got the job with the coatings company at 35 years old. They started me at $10 an hour with 3 kids, and my wife had just lost her job.
Jeez.
And that was where we had the conversation. Look, if we're gonna be broke the rest of our life, we might as well do something that we like. So of course we talked about how everything transitioned, and I worked through that. I ran that place like I ran my own company from day one, making $10 an hour, and I was actually in a business owner mindset from day one. So I went to my boss at that 4-year mark, and I said, you know what? I appreciate everything, but I'm going to get my license. I'm mailing it out. Can I have your well wishes for that? Absolutely, Jason. So here's the craziest thing was that very evening I went to the company softball game. I'm warming up and I tore my calf muscle. I couldn't walk, like popped. So for 2 weeks I couldn't walk. Jeez. So I'm sitting at home and I built my website and I turned on my Facebook and I did all of this stuff, right? My kids are at school. My wife was away. Like I'm sitting there with my leg propped up and I'm doing all the things I need to do. By the time I could walk again, then my friend Jared says, come check out this networking thing. By the time I could walk again, I had work coming in like crazy.
That's awesome.
So like everything kind of like kept hitting me, like
You were literally on your butt.
yeah.
And you couldn't freaking walk.
Well, there was a point in time too where I had a dream in the middle of all of this, and like I was walking through like this really like black and white and gray world with like tortoises and like lily pads and things like that, and a voice said, "You're not done."
Crazy.
And that was when I read Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. That voice said, "You're not done." That voice, I listened to it. That voice said, "Leave." That voice said, "You're not done." And all these things that had happened all along the way were leading me to where I needed to be.
I love that.
And just don't, and just listen to the voice, because the voice knows. Not your voice. Your voice says, don't, it's not going to work out. Don't listen to that guy. Listen to the voice that really guides you and follow your heart.
Yeah. Do you ever get the feeling like you should just accept rock bottom as the new normal? Well, you shouldn't, because there's more to life, and you deserve that. Nora Johnson with My Oil Connection has a really, really awesome story about how she has been able to overcome some of her struggles.
Probably a few times. And again, I'm tender on this one. Going through a divorce. I was married before and had a little girl that was 14 months old when I left. And that was one of the hardest things. But again, I had a great support system. I had a family that cared. A few friends that still were in my circle because the situation, I didn't have friends allowed or let in.
It's messy.
Yeah, it's messy, definitely. But I've learned a lot, and I've been able to give to others because of what I went through. So I can see the value there, but at the time it was just like I didn't have anything.
Hell.
Yeah, it was definitely hell. Beat down, beat up, in very sense of every way. Yeah. So I was grateful to a good support system that I could go back to where I didn't think. Long story, but we don't have time for that. But that was a rough point. But again, seeing the value of how I could help somebody else not get in that situation.
How did you have the strength to reach out to people? Because we talk about having a support system and everything, but I think so often when we're going through things, we don't want to reach out. How did you overcome that?
Well, luckily
fear?
enough, it wasn't because I reached out. It's because they reached out to me, a sister, and saw things and just made me aware, come back to my true self of, this isn't right, Nora. And so that's where it started, like, oh,
That's beautiful. Thank
and
you
then
so much.
and then a brother that
Yeah.
seriously just got me out of the situation. Middle of the night,
Let's go.
Yeah, let's go, and fought for me.
Wow.
Yep.
That's beautiful. Now, this next clip is very, very personal to me. If you've ever felt like just giving up on life, like there's nothing more that you can do to fix it. Keep watching. 2-time suicide attempt survivor David Skolnick has something to say about his experience and what he learned from it and what he did to overcome.
It just got to a point where it was like, again, the poking in the ribs analogy is kind of about as good as it gets, where it was like, it'd be better to feel nothing than continue to feel this type of way inside my head, because I felt like I was thinking so much that I couldn't have a conversation. Like I couldn't track what other people were saying because I was in my own head all the time. And like those thoughts were just getting like more and more and more negative.
Dark.
Right. So there's like, I mean, and in terms of what set this all off, like looking back at it, it was a combination of, you know, moving back to my hometown for where I hadn't been in 8 years, and I was a very different person than, like, you know, you go from 18 graduating high school to 25 done with graduate school, and like everything about me was different.
Right.
Right. But then you kind of you have that pressure. I don't know if you've ever lived very far from home, but it's like
yeah.
you have that pressure when you are home to like be the person you've always been, even if no one's saying it.
Yeah.
And then, you know, my first real job, student loans kicking in for the first time, and you realize that first job isn't so great after all. Like that number you saw that we were so excited about, you're just like, what happened to that? How do I have $33 at the end of every month? I was in a relatively new relationship, so trying to spend as much time with her as possible. Now my wife, but it was like, you know, we were living in different places, so it was like every other night you're trying to like pack an overnight bag to go spend a night, and then getting up and driving 45 minutes across a bridge through Portland to get to work. And as a healthcare provider, there's a lot of pressure, right? Like I'm not a surgeon where I'm dealing with life or death, but I was dealing very much with like quality of life until death, I think is a good way to put physical therapy.
Yeah, that's a good point.
People's quality of life is very much in your hands. You know, after a knee surgery or after a rotator cuff repair, it's like, I mean, it kind of matters at 55 if you're ever going to be able to get your arm overhead again.
Oh, yeah,
or walk normally. It's like that's on me now as a new grad, and I was in a clinic that was busy, and there was a lot of like sort of financial and efficiency pressure rather than focusing on like patient outcomes. It was more like patient volume type of stuff. And so it was just a lot of things, I think, that led to overwhelm. And one of the things I definitely reflect on now in terms of the structure of things was like, I also got the comfort of school taken away for the first time since I was in kindergarten, right? So it's like from the time you're 5, someone else is basically telling you this is how your year's going to go, right? You have this syllabus, and you know when the tests are, and you know what to study for, you know what you need to learn that year.
Right.
And then I was doing that until I was 25.
Right.
So I had 20 years of structure.
And then after
and then you get
that,
a job, and it's like, figure it out.
it's like throw you in the deep end.
So all
Hope you
of
can
that,
swim.
you know, now it's like, so again, that's why like the whole logotherapy thing, it's like, if I wasn't anxious, that would have been more weird. Like, how are you not even processing how different your life is?
Yeah.
Like you're too calm. But it just got completely overwhelming. And I think because of how much structure I'd always had, I didn't know how to deal with that. Right. I went from like complete structure to what felt to me like complete chaos.
Yeah.
And within 6 months, my brain just broke. And so about 5 or 6 months after starting to feel depressed, I mean, I'd been on probably 5 different medications, because every time I'd go back a month later and be like, this isn't helping. I got to a point where I was like DNA testing to see if this was something genetic. I was like, maybe you've always had OCD. I was like, I don't think so. But like the way I was talking sounded like OCD. Like I can't stop thinking about the same thing over and over and over and over.
It's like playing on a loop.
Searching for all this crazy internal stuff when I'm fairly confident it was like environmental factors and all the changes that happened at once. But yeah, I got to a point where it was like, I can't sleep. I don't want to go to the gym because I'm exhausted and distracted. So this thing that's like enjoyable. So like basically everything I tried that didn't work was like more evidence that nothing was going to work, right? The last 3 medications did nothing. I feel worse.
It was reinforcing
Like,
that. Like,
yeah,
there's
taking
no
a
way
month
out.
off of work on like medical leave. Worse. Now I've got nothing to do all day but think, right? Going for a walk, not helping. Going to the beach, not helping. Going to the gym, not helping. Talking to another therapist, not helping.
More of the same.
So it was just a slippery slope to the point where it's like nothing is going to work. So I'm just going to see what happens if I take all the antidepressants I have available to me in my bathroom at one time. And I think what ended up happening was I was supposed to go to work that day. And I think I remember like the receptionist calling me, and I probably told her like I'm not okay, and then like hung up. And then like so then my parents are my emergency contacts. So then they call my parents, who then call 911.
Wow.
And I think, and I don't remember any of this now because like I think I got taken to the hospital on an ambulance. Like I was
Just out of it.
conscious, but I have no memory of it.
Yeah.
Right. And I
like
do remember my mom
catatonic
telling me
almost.
that the guy in the ambulance said I was very nice because I was like apologizing for inconveniencing them.
Oh my gosh. Which honestly, that's so interesting that you say that, because I think for a lot of us that go through depression and that struggle with suicidal thoughts or actions, to view ourselves as an inconvenience to those around us.
That's part of it.
That's
That's part of what makes it worse.
oh my gosh.
Because you realize you're not contributing anything. You're just like, people are trying to help you all the time and it's not working. So it's like, I'm also now a burden.
Now, here's a fantastic clip of my interview with Tiffany Houston. She owns Health and Healing Studios, and she is just absolutely incredible with her positivity and her light and her love. But what she talks about might surprise you. If you've ever felt like everybody just assumes that everything in your life is going so well because you are happy and positive and bubbly, this is the clip that you should watch. Here we talk about how sometimes that's not always the case, and you really shouldn't judge a book by its cover. I know that I've definitely felt that way. So take a look. So it really opened my eyes to not just assume that
everyone's
everything
happy.
is okay with everybody's life just because they're smiling, right?
Yeah.
So can you go into that a little bit more, if you can, of kind of how, even though you might be smiling on the outside in front of everybody, what are some of the things that that have been going on just kind of personally?
So like for a big one, so I have had 4 losses for a baby, and that's like the big thing that I want. I've had 2 miscarriages and then 2 ectopic pregnancies. So that is probably like one of my largest struggles that I go through right now. Like the first one that I had, we were going to the ultrasound to see what we're gonna have. Found out it was an ectopic, and I had to go straight to the hospital. This last one, since my history, I am very, very diligent with like, I was pregnant and I was like, this is weird because I got my period and I was like, it shouldn't be right now. But I made sure that they wanted to book me out like 3 weeks later to go get an ultrasound. I was like, no. Have you seen my history? Like, I need to go like now.
Right.
And I went, and then it was in my tube. And so you can either have emergency surgery, or if you get it enough time, they can give you a chemotherapy drug called methotrexate. So
that just
Oh.
hurts, man.
that does hurt, but for me, it's like a catch-22. So my dad passed away from cancer just last year. Yeah, so I had that too. I had
sorry.
ectopic, and then my dad passed.
Just like piling up.
Boom, 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 right? But the one thing with the methotrexate is it made me understand more of how my dad felt with chemo. Which my
Interesting.
biggest thing is, if anyone has a family member who has cancer, do not force them to do anything. Let them do it their way and how they want to. Because until you get chemotherapy, don't ask anyone else to take it.
Because you don't understand.
Oh, because it sucks. That sucks. And it does not feel good. And it sucks so bad.
I've had friends and family that have gone through that.
Yeah.
It's just like seeing them suffer. I'm just like,
It's intense. So that is one thing where, and actually while we're talking about this, I've been tested with this place a lot, where it literally is created to help people improve their health and heal them in the process. And it has worked with me, like using my space, and I'm blessed that I created a community of people around me so that I can talk about when I have those really depressive times and those thoughts, and then we can go through it. And like right now we're doing the book Human Design, and then different books that we can talk about that we can read to, and acknowledge when you feel that way. Like acknowledge when you are feeling depressed, when you're feeling sad, when you're feeling down, when you're feeling like I cannot get out of this. That the big thing is to be able to have people that you can talk about and be safe talking about it. But also a big thing I do use plant medicine a lot. So I've done ayahuasca and mushrooms. Ayahuasca is what helps like
Heck yeah.
a ton. Like, and it's been used forever, and we know the long-term effects of that compared to the pharmaceuticals that can just make you feel numb, right? And I don't need to feel numb. I need to go through the feeling. I need to go through it
So
so
you
I can on the
process
other
it.
side. Absolutely.
100%. If you guys are more interested in those types of therapies to deal with depression and healing, let us know, because that's definitely an interest of mine. So if you want us to go into that, then we definitely can. So we'll have to.
Oh my gosh,
we'll
and I
have
can
to,
go into
yeah,
it.
we will have to talk about that
Yeah.
on a whole other podcast. So who has been that for you, and how have those relationships helped you get through those struggles?
So I am really lucky. We create the life that we have, right? So like the energy and vibration that you give out is what you get back.
100%.
Most of the time my vibration is very awesome. Like I will say, like a lot of people say, oh, like you light up. I'm blessed with the parents I grew up with. Like I'm a naturally happy person. So
I love
actually,
that you have that too. I mean, it's
yes,
so
I'm super
beautiful blessing.
lucky with that, right? But like I did a lot of work on myself as a kid because I was a very overweight child and people didn't really like me. So I spent a lot of time with myself. So I really got to know who I was and the type of life that I wanted to create. And at a young age, I knew that you create your own life. So actually, like literally all of my clients, like I'm so blessed. Like, I don't know if you heard the client who was just out there before I came here. She was about her job, and I was like, God, every time you talk, I do not ever want to go back to corporate. But I've surrounded myself with like all clients aren't good clients. So now I'm at a space where there's people I've had to drop as clients, and literally I had one where I told her there's a certain vibe in this place and you just do not match that vibe, because she was like this. I don't have any clients like that. And to me, money is not, she was the type who's like, I pay you a service, so you have to take this attitude and stuff. And I was like,
no, I don't.
no, I work for myself, so I don't have to do that.
I love that.
So my community really it's my staff and my clients. Like they know when I'm going through it, and I'm very blessed with, I'm surrounded by amazing people all the time. All the males I'm surrounded with are very secure men who they don't have that toxic masculinity, and all the females I'm surrounded with are very positive people. So it really is, my staff helps me a ton, and my my clients as well as my family. But I would say my staff, like a ton.
All right, guys, that is our episode 37. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Please, if you got value from it, please like, subscribe, share it, do all of those different things. Comment. We love hearing your comments. And by we, I mean me. I love hearing about the things that you've been through and the questions that you have. And together we can grow. Bridges are built from two sides, and no one succeeds alone. Love you guys.